Okay, time to jump in the sauna. Now the fun begins.
In boxing fan circles, the term weight bullying gets thrown around whenever one fighter perceives or weighs heavier than their opponent on fight night, or when fans just so happen to learn of any seemingly significant weight differences in between camps.
I was at least like 190. Got up to 190.
I would gain anywhere from 25 to 30 pounds in between fights. Sounds like a lot of weight. Yeah, it is a lot of weight.
Fans often assume that the larger boxer has gained an unfair advantage by cutting more weight, but in truth, what's often called weight bullying is largely a myth in modern professional boxing and a product of misunderstanding how weigh-ins and physiology actually work. On fight night, a lightweight might step into the ring weighing 150 plus pounds, while their opponent, who weighed the same 135 pounds at the official weigh-in, looks smaller, perhaps entering closer to 145 pounds. The visual difference makes it seem like one fighter is competing in the wrong division. But the truth is, both fighters have used the same system, dehydrating to make the contracted weight, then rehydrating and replenishing over the 24 plus hours before the fight. Nearly everyone in a division fights around 10 to 20 plus pounds heavier than the weigh-in limit. What looks like bullying is really just differences in body type, rehydration efficiency, or genetics. Until the late 1980s and early 1990s, weigh-ins were held on the morning of the fight. Fighters had only hours to recover, so extreme dehydration was dangerous and impractical. Most fought close to their peak training weight, which meant divisions reflected true body sizes. So in the same day era, fighters who could shed a little extra weight and still recover by fight time were rare and stood out. These boxers sometimes entered the ring noticeably bigger than their opponents, which gave rise to the weight bully label. There are many medical risks associated with dehydration, including the amount of cerebral spinal fluid in which the brain floats. Insufficient fluid compromises the cushion effect and the brain's ability to absorb shock. So in an effort to reduce medical emergencies, the Nevada State Athletic Commission instituted the new day before policy in the mid-1980s. It wasn't long before virtually all jurisdictions followed suit. So in the late 80s and 90s, boxers started to use the day before weigh-in as an invitation to drain their bodies to a real or perceived unhealthy degree in order to make a weight that is inappropriate for their age and natural body size. After the weigh-in, these emaciated fighters chug or inject large quantities of mostly fluids to a point where they are often a division or more over the contracted weight by fight time. Where day before weigh-ins were supposed to and possibly did help with some health risks, it ultimately opened the door for these systematic cut and rehydrate strategies that are now universal. Cutting weight and rehydrating in this era isn't cheating, it's standard practice. How prevalent is cutting and rehydrating in professional boxing? You can give a percentage.
All boxers.
100%, huh?
100% boxers.
So every other fighter but heavyweights dehydrates to make weight, then rehydrates after the weigh-in.
Yeah.
Got it.
Hell yeah. 1000%.
And if weight bullying is about the total weight cut or total rehydration weight, then whose opinion should we follow for those parameters?
My opinion on when people say weight bullies, if the person's making the weight, how are they a weight bully? Because I had this conversation with someone the other day. Say someone's cutting 2 kilos and then someone's cutting 2.5 kilos. Is this an imaginary line where something's normal and then it becomes cheating or bullying? Do you see what I mean? It makes no sense to me, because there's no imaginary line where a little bit of weight's okay, but that little bit more is now classed as cheating.
Cutting certainly isn't always an advantage. Cut too much and performance suffers and manifests in slower reflexes, reduced stamina, and weaker punch resistance. If weight cutting were an unbeatable advantage, every fighter would drain themselves to the lowest possible division. However, reality punishes excess.
I've had one of the hardest and worst weight cuts of my fucking life. I felt like it was the closest I've ever been to death. Swear to God, bro. The closest I've ever been to death, bro.
Which fight was that? And how much was it?
This was one of my early fights, bro. I was doing a 6-rounder. It was against a Robert Garcia boy. It was like I was probably like one of my like, you know, 8th, 9th fights or some shit like that.
So it was at 140.
I tried to make 135. It was at 136. So, you know what I was talking about, cutting into the muscle and then completely dehydrating yourself, trying to make a specific weight. And me having that big ass frame that you've talked about in the breakdown with Canelo and, you know, and Crawford. Yeah, bro. I tried to squeeze down to 135 pounds, bro, just to try to have an advantage, right? See if I can, you know, be strong at that weight class, bro. And I found out the hard way. You know, I had a terrible weight cut, did it the wrong way, dehydrated, sitting in the back of the car, driving up, you know, 4 hours to the venue, you know, to where I'm gonna weigh in and fight, bro, in Lancaster, California, bro. I'm talking about the most pain I've ever felt in my life, man. You know, stomach cramps, headaches, cramping, you know, I literally probably could have seized up and died in the car, man.
Damn.
Trying to make this weight. I had an ate for 3 days, you know, trying to cut my body down. I had no more fat to give. I had no more water to give, you know, and I barely made it. I got on the scale. My dad had to pick me up and put me on the scale. I got on the scale. I made weight. Afterwards, I binged like a mother. Drunk as much water. I drunk everything. Soda, you name it. I try to get everything back, bro, and I didn't. I got into the fight. First round, I felt great. Second round, started to feel a little bit down. Third round, hit a wall, bro. Had no more energy, bro. You know what I mean? Only by the grace of God, I was able to get through that shit and push myself. You know what I'm saying? Because I had heart. It was the worst I've ever felt in my fucking life, man. Damn. You know what I'm saying? And it was basically to make a lower weight class.
The bottom line is weight bullying could have been considered a meaningful term in the era of same-day weigh-ins, where rare fighters could possibly exploit their size against naturally smaller opponents. But in the modern landscape of professional boxing, where day before weigh-ins and universal dehydration, rehydration practices level the playing field, the term is mostly a fan myth. Mostly. The closest thing to a real weight bully in this modern era doesn't cut weight, they cut a check. In other words, the real weight bully isn't the guy who cuts water weight and rehydrates. It's the guy who signs for one weight, then pays his way into another. A fighter will sign a contract for, say, 140 pounds, then shows up at 144. Instead of draining all the way down, they pay a fine, usually a percentage of his purse, and keeps the size and hydration advantage. Now the smaller fighter is forced to make a relatively quick decision. Take the money and fight a bigger man, or walk away and lose at least a large chunk of the payday. That isn't about clever weight cutting, it's about power and leverage. The typical A side knows they can miss weight, write a check, and still walk into the ring fresher, stronger, and more durable. Meanwhile, the B side trained to make the limit by sacrificing in camp and gets punished for it.
That right there is what I call true weight bully. So that's right there is what I was saying when Ryan Garcia was getting ready to fight against Haney, and Ryan didn't take from himself those 3 pounds. 3 pounds. That's why he had an advantage in the fight. And of course the ostarine to go along with that. But I'm just saying, you don't make that weight, bro, you have a fucking advantage, bro. Period.
At the very least, let's start using the term in a proper context. Fight fam. Boxing is called the sweet science for a reason. Every slip, every counter, every trap, it's all hidden in the details. At Boxing Gems, we break down those details frame by frame so fans can see the art behind the fight. If you enjoy our YouTube film studies and want to go deeper down the rabbit hole, Patreon is the place. It helps us keep producing high quality breakdowns without worrying about algorithms, and it gives you exclusive access to the content that can't make it on the YouTube. Get extended live stream breakdowns with more detail and analysis. Ask your own questions in the 24/7 chats, decide what fights or fighters we cover, and get personalized private analysis. Gain access to our thriving betting community as well as Boxing Gems weekly picks and much more. Your support means we can keep studying the sport we love and showing why boxing is the most beautiful science. Join the Boxing Gems community on Patreon and let's keep breaking down the fight game together. This is Ryan, professional boxing analyst and founder of Boxing Gems Film Study. Film don't lie.